Yeah, we are.
We are live. Okay, great. So, hello everyone. Welcome to today's Blue Circle workshop. And while we wait for everyone to join in, I will give you a brief about Blue Circle Diabetes Foundation and the workshops. So, Blue Circle is a patient-led community and an NGO for people with all types of diabetes. As a part of Blue Circle's activities, every Sunday at 5 p.m., we conduct a workshop related to different aspects of diabetes. And today's workshop is about a closed loop system, that is the 780G insulin pump. So I think I'll just wait for a few minutes and let other people join. Okay, I think people have started joining in now. Okay, I'll just go over the introduction once again for the people who have just joined. So, hi everyone. Thank you again for joining in. Welcome to today's Blue Circle workshop. While we let more people in, I will give you a brief about the Blue Circle Diabetes Foundation and today's workshop. So, Blue Circle is a patient led community and an NGO for people with all types of diabetes. As a part of Blue Circle's activities, every Sunday at 5 p.m., we conduct a workshop that is related to different aspects of diabetes. Today's workshop is about the 780G insulin pump, which is essentially a closed loop system. Okay, I think people have joined and we can begin. So before we begin, I would like to do a quick round of introduction for all the panelists here. So I'll start. I'm Indraini and I am a type 1 diabetic since last 16 years now. Very recently, in fact, I started using the 780G Medtronic pump. So I'm super excited to be conducting this workshop, and I can quickly also show you. This is my pump. Okay, maybe Komal, you can go next, and then we can have a round of introductions.
Yeah, hi. I'm Komal. So I'm caregiver to Avve. So he's going to be 16 years now, and he's type 1 diabetic since last 4 years. And for 3 years, he was on MDI. And just about a year back, we have shifted him to 780G Smart Guard closed loop system. So that's about
Great.
it.
Great, Komal.
Yeah, thank you. And Avvay, do you want to say something before we do?
Yeah, I'm Avvay. I'm currently 15. I've been using the 780G since like about 1 year. So.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So myself, I'm Karthik. I'm father of Advika, who's sitting beside me. She's 12 years old now. And she has been a type 1 diabetic from 2020. So it's about 2.5 years. And we have had our own learning curve, right? Just like everyone. Started off with injections and then moved on to pump. It's been about 1.5 years since we started using pump. And 780G, I think we started from January of last year. So more than a year now with 780G closed loop system.
Great.
Yeah.
Advika, you want to say hi?
Yeah, okay, so my name is Advika and I am 12, going to become 13 in May, and I've been using 780G for over a year now. And I got diabetes at like June 2020.
Okay, got it. Thank you, everyone. So basically, for people who are not familiar with the 780G, I'll give a brief introduction. So I think everyone who's familiar, who's here is probably familiar with taking insulin using injections or syringes. And then we also have the insulin pens. So insulin pumps are essentially machines that do the same job as injections, with the only difference being that they are constantly connected to the body and insulin delivery is essentially continuous. And now within insulin pumps, recently the most advanced pump, which is 780G, was launched in India. I think it was more than a year ago. So what 780G is what we call a closed loop system. So simply put, it has a continuous glucose sensor which is connected to the pump, and then based on the glucose readings, the pump takes decision on how much basal insulin to give, gives alarms when the sugar is too high or too low, and even stops the insulin delivery when sugar goes too low. So because of this, it is often called, even artificial pancreas. And now we have Karthik and Komal, who are caregivers for Avyay and Advika, who have both been using 780G for a few months now. So the way we will have today's workshop is I will ask them a few questions about their experience. And in the meanwhile, the audience can ask their questions in the comments, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible together. So, Komal, maybe we can start with you. How was it to move from injections to 780G directly? Maybe you can share your experience.
Okay, so frankly speaking, going from injection directly to the pump and that to a closed loop pump, which does everything by its own self, right? So sometimes the thought was scary, like how to shift and what to do. But really, it has helped us a lot. And initially, so there was in 780G, what happens is it's not directly that it goes to the automation system.
Yeah,
So it takes about 4 days. I mean, when you, put the
correct,
patch and first time when you
correct.
use the
Yeah,
pump. So it takes about 4 days, and after 4 days, it's then go to the smart guard. So that's the
correct.
smart guard system is the actually system which takes care of the automatic insulin delivery.
Yeah,
So the most important part for those 4 days was to have a perfect basal settings, because that was the thing which will pump will take for the smart guard setting. So if
right,
the
right,
basals are not set properly, and if the boluses, if the carb ratios and the insulin sensitive factors are not added correctly in the pump during those 4 days. So actually we did not knew that directly very
Mhm.
nicely. So first month I really had a trouble, because it was all the readings were taken from the manual settings for those four
Right,
days and
right, right.
initially for 1 month or so the sugars were spiking, getting the lows. I mean, it was a whole lot of mess. So then once we understood, so we did the resetting with the manual thing, and we set the basals and all, and then we were very good at it. So what 780 do is like it gives you the automatic, as you already told, basal delivery. And the most important and the good part for 780G, it's almost work like a artificial pancreas. So
Correct.
once
Yeah.
the sugar spikes, so there are different settings on the pump. So once you do that setting, like setting is between 100 and 120. It
Mm-hmm.
cannot be below 100 or it cannot be above 120 for the automated. And
Right,
then initially it starts increasing the basal. And after a certain point, like say 150 and above, it starts giving the auto corrections.
right,
So
right,
that's the way it works.
right, right. And Advai, for you, what would you say was the biggest sort of advantage of moving from injection to
I
the
think
780?
it's very easy when you go outside or somewhere, and playing basketball has become easier because of the temp target setting, so the sugars
Correct,
remain more stable.
correct,
Right.
correct.
Right. So one thing which I mean I will just like to mention here, like he has just taken his 10th boards. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing, most important thing for the kid point, I mean children point of view, what I found is that this really helped us. If the child is studying at night till like late nights, 2, 3 o'clock, so you don't have to worry about the sugars actually because the pump is
Right,
taking care. So
Correct.
that
Correct.
really helped. So it was first time after 4 years during this last quarter we have seen like it is actually a near normal life.
Yeah.
You're really
Yeah.
not worried. But one
Yeah.
thing I would really suggest, never trust technology, because
Yeah.
if senses, I think we'll go forward and we'll discuss about it. So
Yeah.
let I
Yeah.
think Karthik wants to add something here.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Karthik and Advika, maybe you can add on to what Komal said.
Definitely, I think for us, if we go back, we started with the mixed starts actually when Advika was diagnosed, and then that didn't work out really well, and then we moved on to the basal bolus MDI, and then even before the 780G came in, we started using the older pump without the closed loop system.
The Minimed,
So
is it? The
yeah, the
Minimed
mini med.
722. Right. Right.
Correct. That's where we started the pump, but we still had the CGM. Ever since she had diabetes, I think about 4 to 5 months from when she was diagnosed, we started using the CGMs.
Mm-hmm.
So we were sort of familiar with this, and in fact, 780G was about to be launched in January of last year. We were even
Right.
looking into doing a do-it-yourself pump as well. I think there was a session on Blue Circle also on that.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily, 780G came up, then we said, okay, we'll switch to this one rather than doing that. For us, the
Right.
biggest advantage has been, I think, Abhay said that rightly. One is the injection itself was not a problem, but then now there are snack times, and then when we go out, I think it has made it quite easy for Advika to pump insulin for herself, and
Mm-hmm.
that way it has made it really easy. But the biggest help for us it has been as caretakers. I think it's the overnight monitoring. So what used to happen is that
Right.
we used to wake up several times during the night just to make sure that the blood glucose is not running low. And since there is no automated or a closed loop system, sometimes it used to go low, and we need to feed her something in the middle of the night. So
Right.
it was essentially loss of sleep many days. But once this came in, I think one of the best things that 780G does is to maintain the sugar levels overnight. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so
No,
it
I
maintains
completely
around.
agree with you, Karthik, because even I, in fact, experienced this. Like I said, I have been using a 780G only for 3 days now. But I still see the advantages, especially at night. Like you said, the dawn effect where the sugar kind of slightly increases
Mhm.
at night, even if it is 140, 150, it automatically sort of takes care of that sort of hyperglycemia by injecting a small insulin dose. And I always wake up with sugars in range, which did not happen before. So I totally get the nights being good state lines,
Exactly,
and
I think
good
so.
sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
to add on, like I would really like that, as Kartika said, like so just to give you the real thing, like in last 6 months, I would just had one hypo, and that is also on Holi because he was playing and
Oh
all.
wow,
So
Ajay,
I was
that's
really,
great.
yeah. So it is really controlled. I mean, the hypos, and basically what I have also, as you're talking about the straight lines, like earlier back on MDI, we were always worried. We wanted to
Yeah.
make him sleep at 160, 180,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that the sugar doesn't drop at night. And
Correct.
sometimes you also feel scared, like not able to get up or something. So
Yeah.
of course we follow our app in 780G. So in fact, as a caregiver, it gives me a lot of peace, when he's not around, if I am traveling outside due to office or something. So anywhere in the world, I would say I can know what his sugar levels are. And if there is something going wrong, we get the alarms. And now
Yeah.
easily, like we make him sleep at 100 also, 120
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
And morning sugars are really, I mean, at least if you're able to cover that 8 to 9 hours or straight line, so the
Yeah.
kids also get the quite optimized sleep, and it's
Right.
give them
Right.
the better energy the following day instead of
Yeah.
having those spikes or those things.
Yeah.
So that
And
really
have you
helps.
also observed, yeah, and have you also observed this, that let's say, you're about to sleep and you're slightly high. So let's say you're at 180. Then, the pump also takes care of itself, like of
Yeah,
the sugar, and kind of brings it down without you having to worry about hypos. Because if I were to manually correct a 180, going by just the number of 180, then it would often just result in hypos. Like, even though I have all the calculations in place, it really
right.
depends on how much have you exercised, what kind of carbs have you eaten.
Yeah.
So also for you, Karthik, also because Advika is still tiny, like, does it give you, like, is it super helpful to sort of know her readings all the time through the app?
It's definitely helpful, but even before this pump, we did have the Libre and
Right,
we also used Blue Circle app for generating reports and so on.
right,
So
right, right.
I think the monitoring was not a challenge because ever since we
Okay,
started putting her on CGM, even before the pump
right.
days, I think that was definitely necessary. I don't think there is a way without that. We are so used to
Yeah,
that now.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but what has happened, as you said, is when it gives corrections, it doesn't overcorrect, right? I mean, when it
yeah,
is 180, probably if you're doing a manual correction, and for every unit there is a 60 mg DL reduction, then we
yeah,
go ahead and give 1 unit. But whereas this
yeah,
gives like point 0.2, point 0.4, checks for a while, and then adjusts again and so on. So I think that
yeah,
way it optimizes. But I think
right, right.
just to these are good things, but I would like to also add one more thing that's happening is that
Yeah,
with all the automated system, it's still not 100%, right? I think the basics are still
yeah,
required.
for sure. Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
the insulin to carb ratio is very important because for all the meal,
correct,
we
correct,
still we still have to do that. I
correct.
think once we figure that out, it's probably the only work we are doing now. Essentially trying to figure out the carbs as best
Yeah,
as we can.
yeah,
That is still necessary. And
yeah,
also, I think there are three key parameters that we need to key in, right? So one is the insulin to carb ratio, and the insulin sensitivity factor, and
yeah,
I think the active insulin time. So I
yeah,
think the fundamentals that we have all learned without the pump days, I think, is still very
yeah,
strongly needed to
yeah,
optimize the system, so that we can get the best benefit of this. And otherwise, if we are not doing those things, if we oversee those things and then start plugging in a bit randomly, then it can also do the hyper issues, right? So
right,
so I think
right.
it's the fundamentals still stay the same, but I think it is helping out a lot in terms of anything other than the meal and snack bolus. I think we don't have to worry about the corrections both ways is not needed
Correct,
for the
correct.
most part.
Yeah. So actually, that was going to be one of my questions. That what are the things that have become easier with 780G, and what are the aspects that still remain the same? For instance, I feel like watching your carbohydrate intake is still something that is relevant, right? Like even for the pump to make corrections when you've had a low carb meal versus you have had a very heavy carb meal. I think the results are still different. And then
Yes.
I think sometimes, I don't know if you have faced this, but the patch issues, the kinking of the patch and all of that is still sort of, that's something that I experience sometimes. So I think those patch issues sort of still remain. And then I think lastly also entering bolus well in advance, like depending on what insulin you're using,
Yeah.
like
Pre
15 to
bolus
20
is
minutes before. That is also something that we need to do. And like Karthik mentioned, I think carb counting is one of probably the most challenging things to do, because it's really hard to look at your food and be like, okay, it has 160, whatever, right? Like this is 80 grams, this is 20 grams. I think that is
Yeah,
something
there
that
is.
even after 16 years, it's kind of really hard to look at
No, I
every.
think it will always be hard. I mean, like especially when now he's grown up. So when he goes out and all with his friends, so then I think he ensures that what kind of food is eating. So as you were
Mhm.
saying, it's very difficult. Like that was my point initially with Medtronics. We were also on
Yeah,
CGM since beginning, and we were using Blue Circle app for the follow up things and all. So it was monitoring was again never a problem. We were getting the
right, right,
this thing notification through Blue Circle app.
right,
But the
right,
challenge for the 780 is one is like their sensors. I would really say that I don't know how's Karthik experience during that time, but during 1 year of time, I see the sensors are actually, I mean, either they are accurate or either they don't work. I mean,
right,
so that's a big issue. And here, if the sensors go wrong, so then it creates a problem. Sometimes if you're not
correct.
monitoring it regularly, if
Yeah, yeah,
you can't be very careless at all with the closed loop systems,
yeah,
because in the case the sensor is giving a wrong reading, so then it can create some kind of hypos,
yeah,
and if it is giving more spikes and then the auto correction. So but apart from that, like having these cons, I would still say, like if we educate the person living with diabetic who is wearing this pump to just ensure, so then I would say 90% the life will be easy. And
Yeah,
of course, this they really have to work on the time and range correction, because it is
yeah,
still not, even I would say, not exactly all the time. I mean, some days, yes, it is 90%, but on
right,
average, what I see is around 80-85%.
right,
If we
right,
talk about matlab, like within 180, and
correct.
below 160 it is around 70%. So I was
Right,
really
right.
looking for this system as a more time and range kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. No, you're right. So, I think we can quickly address some of the questions in the comments here.
Yeah.
So, Meera is asking, does 780G have its own algorithm, or does it use the loop algorithm? So, I think so far as I know, it uses its own algorithm.
Yes.
And with every version of 780G, I think they're improvising. So, I
Yes.
happened to speak to someone at Medtronic recently who also said that very soon. We'll probably
Seven.
have a sensor that does not require calibration, and there are continuous improvements that are being made. So I think they definitely have their own algorithm. Then the next question Mayank asks is, what is the downside of using a closed loop system? So I think this is going to be a big part of our discussion anyway, but I'll list a few that I can think of, and you guys feel free to add. So one, I think the biggest downside, it's not a downside, the biggest con is the cost, right? It is extremely expensive. I think just to give you numbers, and I mean, correct me on this as well, I think the cost of the pump itself is 6 lakhs one time cost, in addition to a monthly expenses of counting your sensors, quick set, reservoir, insulin, glucometer, as in the strip, everything included. I think it goes to about up to 20,000, if like around 20,000.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
So I
tune of
think,
20 to 30,000.
20,000. Yeah, in tune of
yeah,
20,000, 20 to
yeah,
22,000 and 25,000, depending like what are the
on what,
uses. And of course, you
correct,
are keeping the tapes and the universal batteries. So if you
correct,
really
correct.
count that
Yeah,
minutely, yes.
yeah,
So it
yeah.
is around
So
20 to 25,000.
yeah. So I think that is objective. Like it's a very expensive
Yes.
sort of way to treat your diabetes. I think that's one. And then I think I don't know if this is a con for you guys, but for me, one of the things that I was sort of worried about and was hesitating while buying the 780G is that the minimum average glucose that you can set is 100. So the
Yes.
only options you have are 100, 110, and 120. And I would have preferred to have an option of 85, for instance, or 82, which is like the ideal sort of glucose level. So I mean, let's say if my sugar is like 98, like something around 86, then I don't want the pump to sort of work by assuming that the average is 100. So that is another thing that I would say is a con. And I don't, and because you guys have been using this pump for longer, do you think that we become too dependent on the pump, and then when the pump crashes for some reason or stops working, it's really hard to sort of remember, oh, how did I do this before I was dependent on this, or like what are the basal settings for nighttime and during the day? Do you experience that sometimes?
Would you like to
I think
answer?
Karthik, you have used this pump for I think the longest time, so maybe.
Yeah, I think that fear is there. You're right. And in fact, this summer we were even discussing that maybe she should take a week or 10 days off from the pump and get back to MDI, just to make sure that we are in touch with that as well. And you can expect failure anytime. I think that's one of the things.
Yeah,
Maybe it
yeah,
can happen by itself, or maybe these are children while playing. They may do something to the pump, or
correct.
it may crash. We don't know. So I think that's very essential that we still remember what we have to do. And even now, when we go for a bit longer trips, we always have our insulin pens and insulins as backup. So
Right.
you're right. I think once it happens, we'll get we'll start thinking about how we were doing that, definitely. But I think we are trying hard to remember whatever we have been doing, and it's very essential. I think that's one of the downsides as well. Once you get used
Right,
to
right.
the comfort, I think it will be a bit of hard work to once it fails. Once there's some technical failure, we have to do that. Just one thing that I also wanted to add is for some of them who haven't started using pump is that I think most of them will be familiar with the basal and bolus injections. So with a pump, it's only the rapid insulin that we use. So it can
Yeah,
be no rapid or We ask,
Humolog.
whatever Humalog,
Yeah.
only the rapid insulin, and this can cause some trouble for people who are very athletic. So it
Right.
acts quickly. So if you are going to have a lot of athletic activity, then it's important that you plan your insulin delivery accordingly. Maybe have meal well 1 hour before your physical activity and so on. I think that's one of the downsides of having an insulin pump with just the fast acting insulin in it.
Right. Right. Right.
So I will really like to add here, Indrani. So
Sure.
this is a
Yeah.
very relevant question which we faced after just after 1 month of shifting to 780G. So something happened and we went wrong with the pump. Okay.
Okay.
So again, because it's very important to know the basics before we move on the technology, So
Right.
and we have
Yeah.
to really remember, because the thing is, as Karthik has mentioned on pump, this is only the fast acting, rapid acting insulins that is used as the basal as well as bolus. So
Yeah.
the moment you either go off the pump, so when you have to go back to your basals like Lantus, Tresiba, or to whatever, so then
Yeah.
you should know, because if you are not able to calculate like whatever the when you have removed the pump, like till then what was the basal that was running and how much you have to take it. So that is settings, and knowing that is really very very important here.
Right, right, yeah. Also, I think a couple of people are asking in the comments that, how aggressive is 780G in autocorrection, how fast the pump autocorrects. Suppose if we input less carbs than actual. And I think Sarah is also asking the same. Is it enough to bring the BG levels down fast enough? So, in my experience, it doesn't bring down the sugar levels fast. Like it's definitely slower than, if you were to inject a correction dose of 3 units. But that said, the biggest advantage is that it doesn't let you go into hypo in the process of correcting, which is what used to happen when I would manually correct. That, I would always somehow just end up taking more than required eventually. And so I would always kind of go into hypo, and the pump does not let that happen. So that's my opinion. But Karthik and Komal, please feel free to
Yeah.
add.
So what happens is like it gives the micro boluses actually.
Yeah.
So when you reach, like we were talking about 100 and 120. So
Mhm.
just I also spoke to Medtronics one thing about that, because it is also approved for the children above 6 years age now.
Yeah.
Okay. So if they put that value like below 100, so there can be a chance for the kid going to the hypo, because an adult can understand when they are going hypo and when they are lower than that 100 numbers, if the pump starts exactly at 80, 82, whatever. So once and the second is like the moment you reach 120, the pumps start increasing the basal rate actually, not give the bolus. So
Correct. Yeah.
once the pump reads like it is reaching 150, and after it reach 150, then according to your sensitivity factor which you have put in the pump, suppose it's like 1 unit for 40 grams or something. So then it gives like zero point 0.1, zero point 0.2, zero point 0.3. So it gives a micro boluses, not like it starts injecting all of a sudden. So it is doing during a period of time, say half an hour or 1 hour time, like because the artificial system, artificial intelligence is reading the body exactly. So one more thing is like if it is giving that micro boluses, the spike doesn't stay for a longer time. Like what happens is if a
Yeah.
child is reaching at somebody is reaching at suppose 200 or 240, so it will just be for half an hour, 45 minutes or something, because pump is already started acting at when the child was or the person was at 120. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't give a very aggressive boluses, so it is
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
a micro boluses to
Yeah.
answer to that question.
Correct. Correct. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Meera is asking, what monitoring system does it use instead of Night Scout? I'm not completely sure what Night Scout is, but it
Yeah.
uses its own Medtronic inbuilt sensor. If you guys know what Night Scout is, then maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so no,
Nice.
780G. Okay, yeah, Karthik, please take it.
No, no, that's okay. Go ahead.
Karthik, I think you can speak. I think
Yeah.
Komal's
Okay.
internet.
So,
Yeah.
so the Night Scout is, it's another app where you can link all the CGM data as well. So, I think the people who are using do it yourself insulin pumps, they use that a lot,
Right.
and I've seen many others using that as well without closed loop as well. But
Right.
Medtronic has its own native app. It has
Right.
a CareLink app, and there are two apps. One for the person who is actually wearing the insulin pump, so they can see the data, and that data gets uploaded in the internet, and then the followers, parents, or the caretakers who are looking at that has to download another app. Then they can follow the data. So it's native app. It's not Night Scout at present. Medtronic doesn't allow linking this data to any other third-party apps officially, but there are workarounds to take it to other IoT devices as well. But not in
Right.
the mainstream.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
CareLink apps
yeah.
give you a very good reports actually. So it is like very minute daily reports, weekly reports, monthly reports. Every time when the pump is connected, when the auto guard is released. So the reports which 780G is giving you, it's a excellent detailed report in which like if you really work around those reports, so you will understand like why the spike happened or why the
Yeah.
hypo has happened. So it
Yeah.
is giving
Yeah.
you a very, and of course the CareLink app is there. So Night Scout
Yeah.
is a different app actually, which is altogether used for
Correct.
another CGMs and all. So where, but Medtronic has his own
Right.
total. The sensor is Medtronic, the pump is Medtronic, and the app is also Medtronic. So this
Yeah.
is all. This is a complete legit commercial pump actually.
Yeah.
So that's how they are not allowing anybody to enter to their system.
Right.
So it's
Right.
all
Yeah.
together with
Yeah.
them.
In fact, the person who from whom I bought this, he basically said, Indrani, two brains can't work here. It's either the pump's brain that works or your brain. If you try to
Yeah.
sort of merge these two, it's not going to work out. So that's how much it doesn't let you intervene into its system. And sort of in line with this same discussion, a bunch of people are asking what is the TIR time in range used? Is it 70 to 180? So yes, I think it is 80 to 180 if I'm not wrong, right?
No, it's
It's
70
70
to 180.
to,
70 to
Yeah, so
but
180.
7,
then
yeah, right. And in my experience, when I like, even though the range that I've set for myself, the target range is 80 to 120, but whenever I'm getting the reports are for 70 to 180. And I have not been able to change this, but again, Karthik and Komil, you have had better experience with the pump. So, can this range be changed? Can you get reports where the TIR is 80 to 120, for instance?
Yes, I think
no,
Abhay is
the
there's
reports
an
the
option to check,
reports are
no?
70 to 180. That's always the standard. That's the AGP
Report.
universal AGP
Right,
profile, right?
right.
But within the pump, you can always set
Abhay did
the
that one.
range. Within the
Correct,
pump, you
correct.
can set. The report
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
I think, there is a global standard for it, so they don't change 70 to 180. But
yeah,
within the
yeah.
pump, you can.
Yeah, I would say though that should be possible because if we go for other apps that are not, I mean, Ultra Human, for instance, which is not meant for diabetics, but I think a bunch of us use it with freestyle play. So Ultra Human gives you the TIR values that Ultra Human gives you in that report are, I think, 70 to 110. And so it's really hard to sort of compare those reports, but I would love to know for myself what is the TIR in 80 to 120. So I think that is,
So that
in
can be
fact,
done in the pump, Indrani.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah, in
where
sensor
In the
glucose review, you can change the time and range from 80 to 70 to 180 to any range you want.
Yeah,
Then
so
you'll get
I
it.
have done it for my target, but when I'm trying to get the reports, that range is fixed.
yeah, report range is fixed, but
Yeah.
if you want to see, you can see in the pump like below 120 how much and below 160 how much. So
Okay.
that,
Okay.
but in report you can't see that. Report
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
fixed
Yeah.
180. Yeah,
Yeah.
report is fixed 180.
Yeah.
But Indran,
Okay.
you're right in
Yeah.
terms of that. It's you cannot see a historic track record of that time range.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can see
Exactly.
that for the time being, but not on a continuous basis.
Yeah, yeah, because my target range is 80 to 120. And so, even if I'm 96% in 80 to 180, it's not of much value to me because what if
You're
I'm
too
like,
aggressive, Indran. We are not looking at that range.
So yeah,
yeah, yeah, no, I mean, of course, it's a personal choice for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just think that there should be an option, right, to choose this. Like, I
It
think
should be.
even
It should
for
be.
I think
the
that will be
average
there in
users,
another next pump which will be
probably.
coming, because yes, I also think like earlier when I started on pump, we were really scared, and I was like still okay to be on pump by 180
Mhm.
only, like frankly
Mhm.
speaking. But now when
Right.
I see that Abhay is able to take care of himself with pump, so
Yeah.
probably I'm okay with the 160 as well. So I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah,
when he grow up to be 18, he will also
yeah,
like to be at least 120 or 140.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it depends upon
yeah,
the because pump is also what I think 780 also depends on the age group and the kind of food you are eating. Because you are never able because carb calculations and everything. Obviously 100% we are never right. There
correct,
can be
correct,
something which goes wrong.
yeah, yeah,
So that's what
yeah.
that's where the situation comes
Yeah,
when
no,
the
for
kind
sure.
of
I mean, I think it's definitely different for every single diabetic, and what their preferences are in terms of food, in terms of factor, in terms of target range. I just think there should be options for the entire to cover the
and it
entire.
helps on the if you see like target range has definitely come up now and we are all looking for
Yeah,
that and we are trying to lower the deviation also.
yeah,
So if we
yeah,
see in 780G the deviations are very less.
correct, correct.
So that
Yeah,
also really helps. I mean,
yeah,
the
yeah,
deviations are very less, and I really see like HbA1c is also improving for other people. Also, I know.
yeah. True,
So
true.
that is also important, and
Yeah,
having that kind of HbA1c without the hypos, I mean, that's also one
correct.
of the good point we
Yeah.
can look at 780.
Yeah, yeah. Because another thing is, often for HbA1c, it's sort of a reflection of the average glucose value that you have had, right?
Right,
But it
right.
doesn't necessarily indicate the time in range. For instance, let's say I
No, no,
had
no.
an HbA1c of 5.7 in a period of 3 months where my sugars were continuously going up and down, right? I was like sort of jumping between hyper and hypos, and still it was 5.7. And then another set of 3 months where I was really doing it well, very few hypos and very few hyper. Even then, it was 5.7 because it's the average at the end, right? Like, so if you're fluctuating or not, that's not captured in the HbA1c, which is why I think the TIR sort of is really important.
Really important.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, answering a few other questions here. Do you use a single basal rate through the day or do they vary? Is what Meera is asking. So Meera, I think for 780G, it is sort of it varies not just throughout the day but also every single day based on what your values are. So it's kind of a continuously, so it's almost like a dynamic system. Which insulin are you using? I think we discussed this. I'm using Humalog, but Advika, I don't know what you are using, and Komal, I don't know.
Novorapid. Novorapid.
Novorapin, same Novorapin.
Yours. Yeah,
And just to add, like the
yeah,
basal, which you were saying,
yeah,
so
yeah,
780G calibrates itself after 24 hours, like every day. So it reads your body for that day and it improves for the next day. So the basal, it automatically adjusts the basal. So you don't have
yeah.
to do anything with the basal settings.
Correct, correct. Then Karthik is asking, hello, can the pump be removed and attached easily, for example, while going for swimming and bathing, etc.? Yes, Karthik, I think in my experience, I've had like no problem sort of attaching or detaching the pump. The only thing is, I think the glucose value that you see on the pump is sort of connected to the sensor which is on your body. So I think if the distance between the pump and where you are sort of increases beyond a point, then I think there is some disconnect between the sensor because the sensor is still on your body and the pump is elsewhere. So that's, I think, the only thing. But yes, it can be disconnected very easily. Then Sarah is asking, do you all struggle with bubbles in the reservoir, which causes issues with BG levels? Komal, you seem to have
Yeah,
experienced
no,
this, so
yeah.
please.
So bubbles are there in the
Yeah,
vial always,
yeah,
So there is a trick to, I mean, Ave knows is better because he is doing on his himself. So you have to remove the bubbles before putting it to the reservoir. So reservoir should not have the bubbles. And if you
hmm,
think the insulin is not getting delivered, so try remove it and do a priming again. So that is very important. But otherwise, in about a year of our experience, we have not faced any bubbles inside the reservoir
right,
because they
right,
are there, but we take it out before we, I mean, Abhay takes it out before he puts it to the reservoir.
right,
And
right,
sometimes it happens that the insulin delivery is not happening, like there is errors on the pump. So you can just disconnect it. I mean, just take the loop out, I mean, the tube out and can do the prime and check whether the insulin is actually coming out of the pump or not.
right, right. Karthik, have you experienced this before with bubbles?
No, no. I think we haven't had any problems with bubbles because
Yeah.
once we prime the pump, and we essentially before when we change a new reservoir in the pump, which we have to do every 3 to 4 days, what we do is we fill in that reservoir that goes inside the pump, but then we
Right.
do what we call as priming, where we make sure that at least 1 or 2 drops of insulin, we see that physically before
Yeah.
we plug the pump to the body. So I think that
Right.
makes sure that there is no problem in terms of getting insulin transmitted into the body.
Yeah.
So I think even king to cannula, we haven't had much of trouble. We have probably
Never.
out of 1 year and 6 months, king to cannula probably has been like 3 or 4 times, I would say. And even then, we know the reasons why it happened.
Yeah.
Maybe when she was playing, it happened or something like that. But I would say it has been pretty reliable in that sense.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question is from Sonali. I think, Sonali's daughter Rama uses 780G. I in fact spoke to her before purchasing this. And thanks, Sonali, for all your feedback. It was super helpful. So her question is, as parents, sometimes we get very impatient when the sugars are high and the pump doesn't act fast enough. I have also experienced this in the last 2-3 days because I've really been experimenting with my food just because I'm like super excited to see what the pump does. And in that attempt, my sugar did spike a couple of times, and I was like, "Oh, still 180, can you come down?" So how do you deal with it? Because considering that if we do any sort of manual intervention where we enter the bolus, let's say, then that kind of interferes with the pump's algorithm, and then that's not going to give the best results. So Karthik, Komal, how do you deal with situations where you are in when you have hyperglycemia and then you are really getting sort of impatient to bring the sugars down?
Yeah, I think there's still a manual intervention needed. I think when we keep talking about all this automated insulin delivery closed loop, I think it's not really fully automated, right? So
Yeah.
what we have to do is, especially, I think I understand this question because especially when children or anyone with type 1 diabetes have high
Yeah.
fat or food like pizza or something, the pump will not know how much of carbs is getting processed. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be really slow. It's not going to be efficient at all. For example, with pizza, we have been experimenting with Advika a lot because she likes pizza a lot. So we have been trying to optimize that. So what we still need to input as an intervention is we should know how much carbs and what sort of food that we have eaten, and that
Yeah.
helps. For example, if Advika eats pizza and then we give just bolus once before pizza, and you may have calculated the carbs, it's all fine. But then what happens is that it starts to spike after 2 hours, 3 hours. And
Right.
whatever the auto correction that you get will not bring down the blood sugars quickly.
Right.
So
Right.
we
Right.
need to manually intervene there. In fact, for pizza, of course, it changes people to people, but for Advika, every 2 hours we need to give her that additional bolus. And we know how
Mm-hmm.
much to give by practice. We have made some
Right.
mistakes
Right.
also in doing that.
Right.
So every 2 hours we give either 2.5 or 3 units for up
Right.
to 3 times, then it fixes itself. So I think there will be. It's not 100% automated in
Yeah.
that sense. I
Yeah.
think I don't
Yeah,
think
Karthik,
we have.
because you use the Minimed 722, I would like to ask you this because I was on Minimed for like almost 10 years, like 8 years. I used the Minimed, the basic pump.
Yeah.
And one of the most useful features of that pump for me, especially in the initial years, was the dual bolus or the square bolus feature, where essentially, let's say I'm eating a buffet or I'm at a place where I'm going to continuously get like food very slowly, and it is going to be kind of carby and over a broad sort of period, over a long period. Then the dual bolus, where basically for those of you who don't know, we can take 5 units right now, and then you can instruct the pump to give the rest five, let's say in the next 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 2 hours. And that is something that you would ideally use for pizza, right? And that I don't yet know how to sort of replicate that
No.
feature in 780.
Okay, so as Kartike said, like suppose, like we also like Abhay is not a big pizza fan, but
Mm-hmm.
in with pizza, like yesterday only he had a pizza and same experience what Karthik shared, we had that. So of course, so yesterday what we did was we did the same as a square wave bolus, but
Mm-hmm.
what we do, like suppose if a pizza required that kind of amount of carbs required, suppose
Right.
10 units, so I still tell him to take either 60/40 or 70/30, right?
Right.
So which is
Right.
the way we used to do on back on MDI. So certain things like as Karthik also mentioned that it is not 100%, right? So when you are having a high carb food like suppose pizza or your burgers,
Yeah.
So it doesn't know, because it will still give that micro bolus only. That's the way it is set. So for on 780G, what again we do, like if it requires 10 unit or it requires 80 units, so 60% we go off like pre-bolus, and then
Right.
exactly after 2 hours, remaining 30% we give it manually. So
Right.
whenever we have seen, like we wait for the pump to give the correction, so
Mm-hmm.
we understand like algorithms goes wrong. But as to just answer Sonali's question also, I also get very frustrated. I spend that much of amount. I call Medtronics also initially. So that much of amount you are
Yeah.
spending and still you are not able to.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like if it is 180
Yeah.
with even 100%, then it's not. Then still it is not that you're doing justice to that amount which they are charging. It has to
Yeah.
be at
Yeah.
least 160 for the children, or maybe 140 and then below.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in this case also, like this is the only thing, and we definitely, I mean, I to really, to be very frank and open
Yeah.
here, I also get something like if it is reaching like 200 or 240, so I tell him to take the bolus manually. I mean, I don't really wait for the pump to give the correction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
after 150 and all, it's okay, because it will
Yeah.
give the micro and then it will bring back to 160, 150. But if it
Yeah.
is around 180 plus or
Yeah.
200, so
Yeah.
then I also give the manual bolus. I do not let the algorithm
Right.
go wrong or something.
Right.
So
Right.
otherwise, it might touch like go below above 300 or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. So so Nupur is asking, when you say you give bolus manually, does it mean you enter fake carbs because the pump may not allow you to bolus on auto mode? Am I understanding correctly? So Nupur, yes, I think I'll just show you. So
Yeah.
my sugar is 140 right now, and my target range is 80 to 120. So accordingly, the pump has basically kind of calculated an adjustment. I think that is because of the active insulin, but this is my only option. I don't know if you can see it. So let's say I am entering, um, like if I want to bring it down further, then I'm entering carbs here, but I can see that okay, for 17-gram carbs I need 19-gram carbs I need 2 units. So there's no option for me to essentially enter only bolus. So I will have to do something of fake carbs. That's how I do it. But Karthik,
And pump suggest also, Indrani, if you sometimes
yeah,
see, like if the sugar is on the higher side, when you
yeah,
want to enter the car, pumps also suggest you, like if you want
yeah,
to bolus. So this is the correction which is also required along with your carbs. I mean, you are
yeah,
definitely we are putting the fake carbs, no
yeah,
question about
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, we are putting the fake carbs, but the thing is, pump will also guide you, like this, like if the this is the range, and then you can just do a two units of correction also.
Right,
So
right.
that's the way
Okay,
it is. Yeah.
right.
I hope the 780, 790 will bring up something good with. So
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
already there.
Karthik, do you want to comment on how you go about hyperglycemia situations? Do you enter fake carbs or do you inject by pen?
Definitely, yeah. I think we sometimes override that automated. We add to that
Yeah,
automated bolus definitely, and that's
right,
purely because we know what she had eaten.
right.
The computer doesn't know. The pump doesn't know what she has actually had. So I think whenever like burger, pizza, or anything that's high fat food that's gone inside, I think we have to know that that auto correction is not going to help. Even if auto correction can go all the way to 350, 400 as well.
Right,
It's not a magic thing. But I think
correct.
once we understand that. But just going back on one point, Indrani, for you to,
Mm-hmm,
if someone wants to do dual bolus, there is a workaround. You can
mm-hmm.
temporarily switch off smart card,
Hmm.
so it gets into a manual mode. There you can do dual bolus, but your
Right,
sensor,
right, right.
your CGM
Yes.
still gives you your
Yeah,
glucose number. So I think you are good, because we have been missing dual bolus dearly. That's something that we wanted to do from the beginning, but Medtronic wouldn't allow us to do. So
yeah.
sometimes we have tried this also. We get off the smart guard, still use the CGM and the pump feature, but do dual. But these days we
Okay,
have gotten a hang of it, so we leave it with smart guard. But as Komal said, we put 70% or so of the insulin, and then 1 hour later another 25 or 30% whatever it's needed.
right, right. Yeah, because the only question being, sort of entering these fake carbs, like let's say that pizza has X number of carbs, let's
Mhm.
consider that as 100. Then when you're injecting the second round of insulin, then does it really count as overwriting the algorithm if it is kind of acting on a certain aspect of
Yes.
the carbs that you have eaten, right? So I don't know if that is interfering with the algorithm or that it's all right
It
to
is.
do
It is
it if
interfering. It is
yeah.
interfering. If
Okay,
you do
okay.
like that, it another 2 days, it will be like
Oh,
not very
okay.
stable. It is,
Right,
but
right, right.
I mean, sometimes, especially with the children,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is no other option.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
it's
yeah,
right or wrong because Medtronic tells me we should not do that way.
yeah,
But of
yeah,
course, I will, as a caregiver, I will really not like to see my child going below 250 at least,
yeah,
ever.
yeah, yeah,
So I have to if it is reaching like 200, 230, so I have to act then and there. Otherwise, too, it
yeah,
can
yeah.
go
Yeah, because
beyond that.
eventually what matters is the goal is to not remain in hyperglycemia for a long time, right?
Correct, correct,
Howsoever you
correct,
do it, even if
correct,
that
correct.
means once in a while sort of kind of interfering with the pump's algorithm.
It
So I
only
think one, yeah,
And Ronnie, just to add here,
yeah,
it
yeah,
only
sure,
goes wrong when you're doing some special meals,
right,
regularly, like I'm just sharing my experience. So usually, I'm in 5 to 7 days, 5 to 6 days of the week. We are on the similar kind of diet. I mean, there is just carb exchange, nothing else. So
yeah,
for like say 5 6 days, we don't face any problem. So it is usually either on the weekends or if there is something special happening. So
right,
then this goes wrong.
yeah,
So
yeah,
then again, as Karthik suggests, but what I mean, I was just talking to my doctor also yesterday. So
yeah,
he also was telling me that try to be maximum time on smart guard because that's the way it will improve the
yeah,
algorithm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah, yeah. One more question is, so what happens when you bolus by pen, like Sonali was asking?
I've
The
never
pump does
done
not account for that, right? No, I don't think it accounts for that. And I
no
think
no.
that is like a really desperate measures. But I do like if let's say, like I've already sort of discussed this with the Medtronic person that the one time that I will like I do see myself doing this is when let's say the pump is trying to sort of give a bolus correction and it's just not the sugar is just not coming down, and if you suspect that the patch is not in properly or that there's a kink, then I think in that case, let's say you have been at I don't know 250 for like a very long time or even 300 for a very long time and the pump just does not seem to kind of get the sugars down irrespective of how many corrections are going. So then I think in that case I would assume that my patch is kinked or there is something wrong with the insulin delivery system mechanically. And then I think in that case, I would go ahead and bolus by pen just to make sure that I don't stay in that range for longer.
But in like during 10 months or our use, I have never given bolus through pen. I mean,
Okay.
there has
Okay.
been never ever any issue for the kinking of the cannula or something.
Right. Right.
And never ever from the pen. I mean, we are never ever stayed also for a longer time on that numbers. And I've
That's
never
great.
seen
That's great.
even 300 ever in 10
Okay.
months on
Okay.
pump.
That's amazing. That's quite amazing, and I
Less than
hope it
300 ever.
remains the same.
Yeah.
So I think just like a last couple of things before we wrap up. One thing is, sort of, do you all know what products are sort of coming out in the market that are sort of better than, the 780G system? So the one thing I know of is that very soon the sensor, which currently requires calibration, is going to be replaced by a newer version of the sensor that does not require calibration. But Karthik, have you or Komal, have you heard of any sort of devices or tools to manage diabetes which are kind of more advanced than the 780G?
No, I think globally, I think
Yeah,
780G, I think we're quite lucky to have this in India as well. So globally, I think there are only two
yeah,
brands that's actually sort of leading this product in the industry, right? One is Medtronic, another one is Easlim. That's not available in India today. And
yeah,
other
correct.
than that, there are other pumps available, but definitely, what we have with 780G is the state of the art.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Guardian Sensor 4, once it comes in, I think currently, okay, maybe one more information for someone who hasn't used 780G or familiar with that is we still have to calibrate twice a day.
yeah.
Which
I think
means
we
we
didn't
have to
speak about
still,
that.
yeah, we still have to prick twice a day, and that's very essential because that's what makes sure, or we are in a comfortable state of mind that the sensor values are accurate. So I
Right.
think I don't know. Even if GS4 comes and there is no calibration needed, I don't think we will ever get out of bricking. I think that will
Yeah.
still happen every day with us,
Yeah. In fact,
because we are
I
not
was
going to
thinking
trust
if
it.
I should. Yeah, I was thinking if I should wait until that sensor
Yes.
comes where I don't have to calibrate. But then actually I realized that if the pump is giving insulin based on the numbers solely, then I think I would almost prefer to calibrate and have
Correct.
accurate numbers than sort of, because at one point I was wearing Medtronic and Libre, and the Libre values, even if they were slightly off, I couldn't do anything about it. So I was speaking to someone at Medtronic about this, and they said that most likely that even the automatic no calibration sensor will have an option for you to calibrate, because that's how it is for the current Medtronic sensor. So only the sensor, not the one which is connected to the pump. So that's one,
Just
and then I
once,
think, yeah,
there is, Anjali, there is another
sure,
also, that's Omnipod 5. So there are
right,
three,
okay,
T-Slim 70, and there is Omnipod 5. That is
Omnipod.
also a closed loop system. That is
okay.
also a commercial code, but that is also not available in India.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Correct, correct.
And the
And Komal, do you
calibration,
know anything about 790G? I remember you just mentioned.
yeah, so
Um,
I know this much, that they're working on it, and probably in another 1 year or so, they'll be launching it. So they
mhm.
are trying to improve the algorithms and having the tighter time and range.
Right, right.
So
Okay.
that is there. And G4 is already launched in India. So people off pumps are already starting using it.
Correct, correct,
But
correct. So now,
people like us on pump, because I am really scared. If the calibration is not there,
yeah, same
then
here
I don't feel
actually.
comfortable for my
Same
son.
here, same here, same here. So Anshita is asking, Anshita, we are not experts, just people who are using this, but why are people sourcing omnipods or doing DIY loop and not just going for Medtronic 780G with closed
Cost,
looping? I think Anshita, cost is probably
cost,
the biggest factor, and the cost is
three
huge. Like,
times.
it's like big enough to
It's
sort of,
three
think
times.
about it. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
about three times, because
correct.
DIY you are able to do in between 2 to 2.5, and it
Yeah,
is 6. So
yeah,
it's the cost is
yeah.
the main factor.
Yeah.
So
So
that is
Anshita,
there.
I think it's a choice. I think you can go through. I think I think last time, or like I think a couple of sessions ago, we did have a DIY looping workshop. So maybe you can go through that. But I think there are some challenges there as well. And Medtronic 780G is definitely easier, but much more expensive. So it's definitely a choice. And then there is one more question: can we calibrate G3 sensor at any time, or only when the beach is stable? So Pushparaj, we can calibrate it at any time, and then you can also accordingly change your calibration. So let's say I calibrated at 12 noon, and then I calibrate again at 8 p.m. Then one, I can do that, and secondly, if I calibrate at 8 p.m., then my next calibration required will be at 8 a.m. So you can totally sort of change
So
that.
just to add here again,
Yeah,
Indrani, so on the day one, when you put the sensor, it is asked calibration two times, 6 hourly.
correct,
Automatically, it will ask the
correct.
calibration 6 hourly. Then on from day two, it will be taking 12 hourly.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, correct. And then I think, yeah, we just have a couple of minutes remaining. So just one thing that I would like to introduce here is the insurance on the product. So Medtronic 780G, because it's such an expensive pump, and so there is an insurance that Medtronic gives, which is for 4 years. But that is only on, if the pump sort of just stops working automatically, and that does not cover physical damage. And I don't know, Karthik and Komal, if you got this, but I was recommended by the Medtronic person to get an additional insurance, which essentially covers physical damage. And I just kind of like purchased it because I was like, I'm getting something which is extremely expensive, and I cannot afford to, have something happen to it in the next 4 years. So, do you have that, and have you had to use it at any point, either of the insurances?
No, I think just maybe one clarification there, Indra. Are they
Yeah,
talking about insurance for the warranty and the insurance goes for the device, or
Mm.
if they're
for the
asking if the
device.
insurance will cover that device?
No,
I
no,
don't
no,
think
no,
that
no, no,
question
no,
was
sir.
meant.
No, 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 no.
It's only for
Yeah,
device.
I don't think anything in India sort of covers the supplies and
Covers the insurance,
all
yeah,
of this. No, not no. This is insurance on the product,
on the product.
on the insulin pump. The reason I also asked this is previously when I was using the Minimed, I have had to use the Medtronic insurance where the pump just stopped working, and I was just I was using it only for 2 years at that point, so I got a full replacement. I got a new model, for free, so that was sort of helpful. So yeah, basically there is an additional insurance available even for physical damage. Just kind of putting it out there because the pump is so expensive. Yeah.
But 4 years, Medtronic is already taking care of that. So
Yeah, so
that two
that's
years
not for
additional
physical
is not
damage.
really, yeah. No, that
Yeah,
is
that's
that covers everything. That covers
no. So
everything.
I
Because I
actually
checked
spoke.
with the Medtronics. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Please
Yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, I actually spoke to them, and it was basically that that person sort of recommended to take something else for physical damage from it, because he said that physical damage is like if let's say the pump kind of just like you hits against something, some other surface, and then that's why it gets damaged, then Medtronic won't give you a replacement, and that's why there's another
So can I
insurance.
add one more thing very quickly for the people who are listening to it? The
Sure. Yeah.
temporary target. I think we have not spoken about the best feature of 780G. That's the temporary target. So
Right.
whenever somebody is going for a physical activity, you can really fix your target. So then pump will
Yeah.
stop giving the correction during
Yeah.
those number of hours, like
Mm-hmm.
2 hours, 3 hours. Like suppose if you're going long where you're going to mall, or you're going for a basketball, you're going for
Right.
slip stocking, any physical exercise, so
Yeah.
you can put that temporary target and the pump will not give the corrections. So
Right.
that also really helps to keep the sugar levels, BG levels stable, and it doesn't give you hypo after the exercise or after any strenuous physical thing. So
Right.
I just
Right.
thought that I should add that point here.
Sure. Sure. Good to know, Komal. Thanks for adding that. And I think we have mostly covered all the questions
There
in
is.
the comments as well. So I think lastly, I think people if anyone has any additional questions, they can post it through Facebook comments, and we'll get back to you on your questions. So again, like just to I think yeah, it's almost 6. Yeah. Okay. So thank you all for joining, and most importantly, thank you to all our panelists for volunteering, to conduct this session. Karthik, Advika, Komal, Latvay. If the audience has any further questions, please feel free to post it on Facebook, and we will try to answer your questions as soon as possible. So thank you
Thank you.
everyone again.
Thank you for the nice session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,